Do you know the definition of horror? If not, let me tell you, it's an overwhelming and painful feeling caused by something frightfully shocking, terrifying, or revolting. This word, horror, has been found in numerous sources of media, whether it be horror films, horror novels, or most importantly, horror games. Consider the master of horror literature, Stephen King, and his chilling novels like Carrie, The Shining, and Pet Sematary. His ability to weave the most horrifying nightmares in his literature speaks volumes about the dedicated audience captivated by this genre. While horror has long captivated various forms of media, it found a unique connection in video games. While franchises like Resident Evil have rightfully earned their place as the titans of survival horror gaming, there exists another title, a Konami creation that transcended mere survival horror and became a pinnacle of psychological terror. Prepare to delve into the depths of the perfect nightmare. Welcome back to the Retro Fans Retrospective. Today, I hope you grabbed your flashlights and are ready to enter the world of psychological horror with Silent Hill. If you're just discovering this channel, you're in for a treat. We've got a growing catalog of captivating retrospectives that peel back the layers of gaming's most fascinating and influential titles. From unsung gems to celebrated classics, our deep dives offer fresh perspectives that'll ignite your passion for the art form. If you want to enjoy an engaging retrospective that blends insightful analysis with the reverence for its subject matter, mash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss our upcoming explorations into the brilliant minds and landmark experience that have shaped the incredible medium. Let's dive into this. Okay, before we jump into 1999, we need to talk about Kiichiro Toyama, whose journey into the world of gaming began with a profound encounter at a young age. Born in 1970 in the rural town of Miyakanoho, nestled in the mountainous region of Kyushu, Toyama's childhood was marked by the solitude of the countryside and the ordinary pursuits of his parents' general store. However, his life took an unexpected turn when he first laid eyes on an arcade game at the tender age of 6, an experience he describes as astonishing and incredibly impactful. Alongside his fascination with arcade games, Toyama's formative years were shaped by another cultural revolution, the rise of Hollywood horror films. Initially indifferent to the genre, his interest peaked as Japanese studios began adapting and localizing American horror, infusing it with their own sensibilities and exploring themes of the supernatural and the remnants of the past. Looking back, I suppose there's a foundational connection, the form of my childhood, something that I was exposed to during that time. Toyama reflects. Toyama's artistic inclinations led him to pursue studies at Tokyo Zokkei University, an institution founded by the renowned fashion designer and journalist Yoko Kurosawa. While his career aspirations remained uncertain during his college years, the simmering passion for video games burned brightly within him. As the game industry transitioned to the realm of 3D in the 1990s, companies like Sega and Konami actively recruited fresh graduates, presenting Toyama with an opportunity to merge his artistic talents with his love for gaming. Ultimately, it was Konami that secured Toyama's allegiance, offering him a role that marked his entry into the industry. His initial project involved porting Hideo Kojima's Project Snatcher from the PC Engine to the Mega CD known as the Sega CD in North America, a task that allowed him to showcase his proficiency in reworking colors and artwork. Toyama's dedication and attention to detail were evident as he went above and beyond, rectifying design inaccuracies and incorporating previously cut elements into the Mega CD version, earning both praise and compliments from his superiors. As the industry shifted towards 32-bit platforms like the PlayStation and Sega Saturn, Toyama's career trajectory took an unexpected turn. Assigned to work on sports games, initially mistaken for a war-themed title, Toyama found himself dejected. However, this project proved to be a valuable learning experience as it introduced him to the implementation of motion capture data, a technique that would significantly influence his future endeavors. In 1996, a group of staff members within Konami's Computer Entertainment Tokyo studio were put together with an ambitious goal to produce a game that would resonate audiences in the United States. This team will be labeled as Team Silent. This team consisted of Toyama, who served as the director of the project, Masahiro Ito, who served as the monster designer, Takayoshi Sato as the character designer, and Masashi Tsuboyama, who was the background and motion designer. While Konami had established a presence with action and stealth titles, the realm of survival horror remained unexplored. The success of Capcom's Resident Evil had ignited a surge of developers trying to leave their mark on the genre, and Konami was determined not to be left behind. The task of spearheading this venture fell upon the young and relatively inexperienced Toyama, a decision that puzzled even the director himself. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure why I was chosen for this role, Toyama admitted. However, Konami's strategy of entrusting new genres into fresh talent played in Toyama's favor, granting him the opportunity to forge an innovative path. Drawing inspiration from his college days, working at a video rental store where he witnessed the popularity of Stephen King's adaptations, Toyama envisioned incorporating elements from these works into the game, aiming to imbue it with a unique atmosphere. I believe that incorporating darkness effectively, we could create a distinct atmosphere, Toyama recalled, contrasting his vision with the well-lit environments of Resident Evil. Initially conceptualizing the use of 2D backgrounds with lighting layers, Toyama's approach took a pivotal turn when a colleague demonstrated a prototype of a pointing light system. Impressed by its potential, Toyama recognized the limitations of its reach but embraced them as a strength in asserting, in a horror game, you don't need to see far. Darkness is a part of the atmosphere. To counterbalance the enveloping darkness, Toyama introduced fog as an atmospheric element, adding depth and intrigue to the game's environment. That was the point where all the ideas came together, he reflected, marking the convergence of concepts that would shape Silent Hill's distinct identity. However, the development process was not without its challenges. As the project progressed, the personnel and management at Konami grew increasingly skeptical, leaving the members of Team Silent feeling like outsiders within their own company. Undeterred, the developers seized the artistic freedom afforded by the era's lower-budget 2D titles and decided to ignore the limits of Konami's initial plan, opting to instead craft an experience that would appeal to the emotions of players. To achieve this, the team introduced a fear of the unknown as a psychological form of horror, crafting a vague, occasionally contradictory plot that left its true meaning shrouded in darkness, inviting players to reflect upon the unexplained. Toyama, who drew inspiration from UFOs, the occult, and the works of David Lynch, questioned Konami's decision to appoint him as director, as he never held such a role before. Despite the odds stacked against them, the developers of Silent Hill persevered, driven by their artistic vision and determination to create a horror experience that would resonate with players on a profound emotional level. Would we see the fruits of their labor? Well, our questions were answered on February 24th, 1999, when the world was given Silent Hill.
今回サイレントヒルを開発するにあたって開発当初から掲げたコンセプトが2つありまして、1つ目はゲームの世界観的なものなんですけど、アメリカンモダンホラーの小説に表されているような世界観をゲームで再現するということを目標にしていました。もう1点ですね、本能に訴える恐怖感というものを表現したいと思いました。特に今回は光と闇の演出、また昼ですと霧が街に立ち込めて視界が効かない、視界の効かないところから、見えないところから怪物が現れるんじゃないかとか、そういった本能的に訴える恐怖というものを表現していました。今回システムのコンセプトに掲げたのが、普通に起こるべきことが普通に起こるっていうゲームにしようということになったんですね。いわゆるなんとかシステムみたいな、ここをこうしなければ攻略できないというような、そういう決めつけてしまうんではなくて、自由度を持たせて、特にライトを今回メインに据えているんで、ライトをつけなければ行動できないけれども、ライトをつけることによって怪物に発見されやすいですとか、慌てて走り出すと、その音を怪物につけられるとか、そういう感覚的に納得できることをゲームシステムに取り入れていこうということになりました。
全般なんですけれども、人っていうのはですね、リアルに実際のものからどれだけこういろいろ見える要素を引き出せるかっていうのをポイントにしたんで、その辺ですかね。顔なんかはすごいよく動きますし、ちゃんと笑う時も歯を見せて笑ってるんで、そういう部分ですかね。
このゲームの開発当初はですね、こういったプレイステーションでフルポリゴンを使った、アドベンチャーゲームというのはなかなかなかったんですね。そういうことでカメラワークですとか光源の処理ですとか、とにかく全ての演出を自分たちで考えてスタンダードを作っていかなければならないということに特に苦労しました。ですね、皆さんがこれまでに味わったことないような恐怖を表現しているゲームなので、ぜひ夜電気を消してこのディスクに入っている体験版をプレイしてみてください。
Here's a quick spoiler, as I'm about to the story of Silent Hill. If you're not a fan of spoilers, please advance to the gameplay overview section as seen on the timeline below. Let's dive into this. Silent Hill, Maine is a quiet resort town in America known for its peaceful atmosphere, but beneath that tranquility lies the haunting memory of a tragic house fire 7 years ago, where a girl named Alessa Gillespie supposedly died. Now, let's talk about Harry Mason. He's had a rough few years. His wife, Jody, passed away from a disease 4 years ago, leaving him a single parent to their adopted daughter, Cheryl. Harry, still grieving and Cheryl wanting to help her dad, begs him to take a relaxing vacation to Silent Hill. Harry finally agrees. Their trip starts off rough with car trouble, so they arrive at the outskirts of Silent Hill at night, driving along a winding mountainside road. Suddenly, Harry spots a girl walking across the street. He swerves to avoid her, and the car crashes, knocking him unconscious. When Harry wakes up, Cheryl is gone. He ventures to the snow-covered foggy town to find her. At first glance, the place, at least Old Silent Hill, seems completely abandoned. Then he spots Cheryl running away and immediately chases after her. He follows her through the eerie streets, down a small residential road, into a dark alley.
Cheryl? Is that Cheryl? Where are you going? Hey, wait! Stop!
Suddenly, the sky turns dark and siren blares in the distance. Harry lights the area with a lighter and finds himself in a completely altered darker realm. The road pavement has been replaced by rusted metal grating and platforms, and the walls are now dark and grimy mesh and chain-like fences. Everything is covered in rust and blood, topped with barbed wire, and you can make out the shapes of hanging bodies behind the mesh.
The sounds of industrial clanking and grinding metal create a constant eerie noise. With nowhere else to go, Harry follows the alley and comes across a disturbing sight, a mutilated corpse hanging on a fence. Moments later, he's attacked by a small childlike monsters. Despite his best efforts, Harry is overwhelmed and seems to be killed. He wakes up in a deserted diner called Cafe 5-2, where he meets an officer named Sybil Bennett from a nearby town of Brahms. After a brief conversation, she gives him a handgun and heads out to look for help.
Was I dreaming?
How do you feel?
Oh, like I've been run over by a truck. But I'm alright, I guess.
Glad to hear it. You from around here? Why don't you tell me what happened?
Wait a second, I'm just a tourist. I came here for a vacation. I just got here. I don't know what happened. I'd like to find out myself. Have you seen a little girl? Just turned 7 last month, short, black hair. My daughter.
Sorry. The only person I've seen in this town is you.
Where is everybody?
I'd tell you if I knew, believe me. But from what I can tell, something bizarre's going on. That's all I know. What's your name?
Harry. Harry Mason.
Sybil Bennett. I'm a police officer from Brahms, the next town over. The phones are all dead, and the radio too. I'm going back to call in some reinforcements. Hold it. Where do you think you're going?
My daughter. I've got to find her.
No way. It's dangerous out there.
In that case, I need to find her now. Cheryl's my little girl. I can't just leave her out there by herself.
Have you got a gun?
No.
Take this, and hope you don't have to use it. Now listen to me. Before you pull the trigger, know who you're shooting. And don't do it unless you have to. And don't go blasting me by mistake. Got it?
Yeah, thanks.
You do best to stay nearby. I'll be back with help as quick as I can.
In the diner, Harry grabs a map, a knife, and a flashlight to arm himself. Just as he's about to leave, a radio on a nearby table starts emitting static, making Harry go check it out. Suddenly, a flying creature crashes through the window and attacks him. Harry manages to defeat the monster with his handgun and stands there in shock for a moment before leaving the diner. Out in the foggy streets, Harry still encounters more monsters. He quickly realizes the radio is incredibly useful. It emits louder static as monsters get closer. Following a clue left by Cheryl, Harry eventually makes his way to Midwich Elementary School to search for her.
Isn't this Cheryl's sketchbook? She's at the school.
When Harry first inspects the school, it's clear it's been deserted for a long time. Instead of students and teachers, he finds these creepy creatures called gray children or mumblers. He navigates through the school and eventually unlocks the clock tower in the courtyard. When he reaches the other side of the facility, he's shocked to find the world has once again shifted into Otherworld. The already dim light is now reduced to what his flashlight can produce, and surfaces have transformed back into the rusted metal grating and uneven platforms. In the Otherworld of the school, Harry makes his way to the boiler room. Inside, he sees a flaming corpse lighting up the room, revealing a creature called Splithead, a large lizard with its head split in half. After Harry defeats the creature, everything goes dark, and then the light returns, revealing an ordinary boiler room. There, he sees a girl, Alessa Gillespie, leaning against a boiler. She turns to look at Harry before disappearing into thin air.
What was that? Who in the hell was that?
Confused, Harry leaves the school and hears a church bell ringing in the distance. He heads over to the Balkan church and finds a woman praying in the altar. She turns to meet him, and during their cryptic conversation, she reveals herself as Dahlia Gillespie. She hands Harry a mystical item called the Flowers and urgently tells him to get to the hospital. Before he can ask any questions, Dahlia disappears and Harry exits the church.
Were you ringing that bell?
I've been expecting you. It was foretold by gyromancy.
What are you talking about?
I knew you'd come. You want the girl, right?
The girl? You're talking about Cheryl.
I see everything.
You know something. Tell me.
Stay back. Nothing is to be gained from floundering about at random. You must follow the path. The path of the hermit concealed by Flowers.
What? What are you talking about?
Here, the Flowers, a cage of peace. It can break through the walls of darkness and counteract the wrath of the underworld. These will help you. Make haste to the hospital before it's too late.
Wait! Don't go yet!
He crosses a bridge that leads to Central Silent Hill. Harry arrives at Alchemia Hospital where he encounters Michael Kaufman, a doctor who is bewildered as Harry about the current circumstances.
Hold it! Stop! Don't shoot! Wait! I'm not here to fight. My name is Harry Mason. I'm in town on vacation.
Thank God, another human being.
Do you work here?
I'm Dr. Michael Kaufman. I work at this hospital.
So maybe you can tell me what's going on.
I really can't say. I was taking a nap in the staff room. When I woke up, it was like this. Everyone seems to have disappeared. And it's snowing out, this time of year. Something's gone seriously wrong. Did you see those monsters? Have you ever seen such aberrations? ever even heard of such things? You and I both know creatures like that don't exist.
Yeah. Have you seen a little girl anywhere? I'm looking for my daughter. She's only 7, short, black hair.
She's missing. I'm sorry. But with all those monsters around, I highly doubt that she's... Sorry, I didn't mean to alarm you. Your wife, she's here with you?
She died 4 years ago. Now it's just me and my daughter.
I see. I'm sorry. Well, I'd better be going. I can't just sit around here doing nothing.
So long. Good luck out there.
Not long after meeting Michael, Harry might come across a red liquid called agolaphotis, which has a crucial purpose revealed later. Harry experiences another shift into the otherworld, turning the hospital into a nightmare version filled with monstrous nurses. During his exploration, he meets Lisa Garland, a terrified nurse who knows a lot about the town and its history. However, before he can get any answers, he's transported back into the fog world. There, Dahlia reappears and warns him of the mark of Samael, a strange symbol he's seen around town. Must not be completed or the darkness will consume everything.
Finally, someone else who's okay.
Who are you?
My name's Lisa Garland. What's yours?
Harry Mason.
Harry, tell me what's happening here. Where is everybody? I must have gotten knocked out. When I came to, everyone was gone. It's awful.
So you don't know anything either. Great. I just don't get it. It's like this is all some kind of bad dream.
Yeah, a living nightmare.
Let me ask you, have you seen a little girl around here? Short, black hair, 7 years old?
A 7-year-old girl. What, she's your daughter?
Yes.
A 7-year-old girl. I can't say that I have. I was unconscious all this time. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Do you know anything about all that weird stuff in the basement?
No. Why? Is there something down there?
You don't know? Don't you work here?
We're under strict orders never to enter the basement storeroom. So I really don't know. What did you say was down there?
Well, it's... Damn! My head.
What's wrong? Harry? Harry, let me help you. Harry?
Was I dreaming?
You were too late.
It's you.
Yes, Dahlia Gillespie.
Tell me everything you know. What's going on?
Darkness. The town is being devoured by darkness. Strength must overcome petty desire, childish sleep talk. I knew this day would come.
What are you talking about? I don't understand a word of this.
Believe the evidence of your eyes. The other church in this town, that is your destination. This is beyond my abilities. Only you can stop it now. Have you not seen the crest marked on the ground all over town?
So that's what I saw in the schoolyard. What does it mean?
It is the mark of Samael. Don't let it be completed.
Hey, wait!
Harry and Officer Sybil join forces again after she spots a mysterious girl hanging around the lake. Together they stumble upon this creepy hidden altar nestled away in an antique store. But things take a bizarre turn when Harry suddenly pulls a vanishing act right under Sybil's nose, leaving her totally baffled. Meanwhile, Harry is on a wild ride himself, waking up in the hospital once again, only this time with Lisa by his side. She drops some unsettling news about heading to the lake, but also hints about feeling trapped, like she's stuck in some twisted game she can't escape.
Harry.
Lisa? Then I'm in the hospital?
You were having a bad dream.
Was I? Hey, you don't look too good. Are you okay?
I'm fine. Nothing you need to worry about.
Well, if you're sure. Lisa, do you know a woman named Dahlia Gillespie?
Oh yeah, that crazy Gillespie lady. She's kind of famous around here. She never sees anybody, so I don't know that much about her. But I heard her kid died in a fire, and supposedly she's been crazy ever since.
Well, she says the town is being devoured by the darkness. Do you have any idea what she's talking about?
The town devoured by the darkness. Yes, I think I do. Before this place was turned into a resort, the townspeople here were on the quiet side. Everybody followed some kind of queer religion. Weird occult stuff, black magic, that kind of thing. As young people moved away, the people figured they'd been summoned by the gods. Evidently, things like that used to happen around here all the time. Before the resort, there really wasn't anything else out here. Everyone was so flipped out, you gotta blame it on something. Then a lot of new people came in and everybody clammed up about it.
A cult?
Last time I heard anything about it was, gosh, years ago. When several people connected with developing the town died in accidents. People said it was a curse. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm rambling. I'll shut up.
Was that another dream? Did I pass out again?
Harry!
Glad you're okay.
Thank God you came back. I was scared to be here all alone.
I'm here now. I was worried too. I'm real happy to see you. Lisa, can you tell me how to get to the lake?
The lake? You take Bachman Road.
The road's blocked.
Well, that's the only way out there.
Are you sure? There's gotta be another way.
Wait! I just remembered something!
What?
There's a waterworks over by my old elementary school. It's been abandoned for years. There's an underground tunnel out there used for inspections or something. I remember hearing it runs all the way to the lake.
Really? You think I can get to the lake from there?
I've never been down in there myself, so I'm not positive. Besides, it's all fenced off to keep people out.
If there's a chance, I've got to try.
Harry, don't go! I don't want to be alone. It's so scary, I can't stand it.
How about coming with me? This may not be the safest place in the world either. I can't promise you anything, but I'll do my best to protect you.
No. Somehow I feel I'm not supposed to leave this place. Oh, Harry, I'm so scared. I'm cold.
Look, just wait here a little longer. I'll be back as soon as I find my daughter.
Harry?
On the way to the lake, Harry passes through some sewers and enters the resort area. He enters Anne's bar where things take a dramatic turn when Harry swoops in just in time to rescue Kaufman from an air screamer. Kaufman's grateful, but duty calls, so he's off in a flash. But wait, there's more. Harry stumbles upon a motorcycle with a curious red vial stashed away in the gas tank. Before he can even blink, Kaufman pops it back up, snatching the vial away in a fit of anger.
Give me that.
What is this?
That's none of your business. Instead of messing with that, how about coming up with a way to get out of here? You shouldn't be hanging around here goofing off. What do you think you're doing? You want to get yourself killed? Get out of here.
Okay, take it easy.
Unless you want to die, keep your mind on business. Got it?
So just when you think things can't get any crazier, the whole town gets swallowed up by the other world. Harry links back up with Sybil and they're on a mission to put a stop to the chaos. Dahlia is pleading for help as urging to the quest. Harry sets his sights on the lighthouse while Sybil is determined to reach Lakeside Amusement Park. Before they can make their moves, trouble strikes. Sybil is ambushed by some unknown attacker. Meanwhile, Harry catches glimpses of Alessa and his ominous Marcus Samael looming over the lighthouse. Harry charges through the amusement park, but things take a seriously twisted turn when he finds Sybil. Only she's not herself. She's possessed by some creepy parasite. Quick thinking kicks in, though, as he whips out that red liquid he snagged from the hospital and administers it to Sybil, breaking the hold of the parasite. But just when you think it's over, Alessa pops up again, throwing Harry for a loop. Desperate to contain her, Harry busts out the flowers, unknowingly trapping Alessa in his clutches. And then, plot twist, Dahlia walks in, spilling the beans that she's been pulling the strings all along. Turns out Alessa's her daughter, and Harry unwittingly fell right into her twisted plan.
Harry, why did they take your daughter? Why her?
I'm not sure myself. But, you know, Cheryl isn't my biological daughter. I actually haven't told her yet. She probably already knows anyway, though. We found her abandoned on the side of the highway. Nobody knew where she came from. We didn't have any kids of our own. My wife was sick, and it didn't look like she was getting any better. So we took Cheryl in.
So in that case...
There might be some connection between Cheryl and this town.
So what do you do now?
Cheryl is my daughter. I will save her no matter what. I figured you'd show. Hold it right there. I don't know who you are or what you're trying to do, and I don't care. Just one thing. Let Cheryl go. That's all I ask. What? Damn. Huh? What is this? Where's Cheryl? Give me back my daughter.
We meet at last, Alessa.
Dahlia Gillespie? Where's Cheryl? Where is she?
Alessa. This is the end of your little game. Mama?
Huh? Could she be...
You've been a ghastly little pet, haven't you, Alessa? I was careless, thinking you couldn't escape from our spell. But Mommy didn't know how much you'd grown. That's why I couldn't catch you all by myself. But what a pity, yes? Now you're half indebted to this man for his help.
Hey, what are you talking about?
Alessa, my dear little girl, there is one thing left I need you to do for me.
No! Get away from me!
Bad girl. Everything's ready. Let's go home.
What's going on here?
Harry.
Lisa. What happened? Where's Alessa and Dahlia?
Harry, listen. Something you said before has been bothering me. I just can't get it out of my head.
What is it, Lisa?
So I went to look in the basement, even though I was scared as hell. Like you said, there were these creepy rooms, but nothing really unusual down there. But while I was down there, I got this weird feeling. I've been there before. Like something happened there, but I can't quite remember somehow. What was it? Harry, help me. I'm so scared. I can't take this.
It's only a temporary thing. You're in shock from when you were knocked out. Don't fret about it. You'll remember after a while.
No. You don't understand.
Wait! Where do you think you're going?
Alessa's powers are now off the charts, and suddenly Harry's waking up to a twisted version of the hospital called Nowhere. He stumbles upon Lisa, but things go from bad to worse. She's bleeding from every pore, a sight that would give anyone chills. Harry torn between fear and compassion as he watches this horrifying scene unfold. He bolts when she approaches, but you can tell deep down he's feeling for her. It's a gut-wrenching moment in this whirlwind of terror.
Harry?
Lisa, what's the matter with you?
I get it now. Why I'm still alive even though everyone else is dead. I'm not the only one who's still walking around. I'm the same as them. I just hadn't noticed it before.
Lisa.
Stay by me, Harry. Please. I'm so scared. Help me. Save me from them. Please. Harry?
Harry comes across Lisa's diary, a clenching glimpse into her past. Turns out she was the nurse who cared for Alessa, but it wasn't just out of the goodness of her heart. She was hooked on a drug called PTV, supplied by none other than Kaufman himself. The plot thickens when Harry's transported to this surreal flashback in Nowhere. He's like a fly on the wall witnessing the shady meeting between Dahlia, Kaufman, and a couple of cult doctors. They're deep in discussion about Alessa's hospitalization and this eerie plan to bring God back into the picture.
Everything is going according to plan, sheltered in the womb.
But it's not done yet. Half the soul is lost. That is why the seed lies dormant.
And what soul remains captured in that husk is buried deep down in the subconscious.
Are you trying to say it won't work? That wasn't our agreement.
No, these are just stalling tactics. If we lend a hand, we will be able to get power. Never fear, the promise shall not be broken.
But the power we could draw now will be very weak. Almost nothing. Unless we get the other half of the soul.
We'll use a magical spell. Feeling this child's pain, it's sure to come.
But that will take time.
Harry stumbles upon Dahlia and Sybil. What really stops him in his tracks is this figure in a wheelchair, wrapped up like a mummy. It's Cheryl and Alessa fused together like some kind of twisted experiment. And if that's not enough to send shivers down your spine, Alessa's astral projection is chilling nearby, adding to the eerie atmosphere. Dahlia, the mastermind behind it all, reveals her dark deed, sacrificing her own daughter in a twisted attempt to birth God worshipped by her cult. 7 years ago, Alessa, in a desperate bid to stop the madness, has split her soul in two, with one half becoming Cheryl, the innocent child Harry and his wife found and raised. In the present, this is where things go from twisted to downright intense. Alessa's massive plan comes to light. She's called Cheryl back to Silent Hill to fully unleash her power. With the town overrun by her astral projections marked with the seals of Metatron, she's ready to wipe out reality and stop the birth of the god once and for all, even if it means sacrificing herself. But just when you think it's game over, Dahlia drops on the bombshell. That creepy mark of Samael Harry's been seeing, yeah, it turns out it's actually the seal of Metatron, and Dahlia's been pulling Harry's strings all along. As the god starts to be born, Kaufman swoops in and hurls a vial of Agalafotis, forcing the god's monstrous form to come out into the open. Harry faces off against this abomination, with everything on the line. In the end, it's up to Harry to save the day and put an end to this nightmare once and for all.
I was shocked to realize the talisman of Metatron was being used. In spite of the lost soul returning at last. Just a little longer and all would have been for naught. It's all because of that man. We must be thankful to him. Even though Alessa has been stopped, his little girl has to go. What a pity.
Freeze! What in the devil's name?
Dahlia.
Well, well, well. To think you'd make it this far.
Where's Cheryl? What have you done to her?
What are you talking about? You've seen her many times, restored to her former self.
I'm in no mood for jokes.
Don't you see? She's right there.
That's absurd.
You are the only one who thinks so.
Why? Why are you doing this?
It's been a long 7 years. For the 7 years since that terrible day, Alessa has been kept alive, suffering a fate worse than death. Alessa has been trapped in an endless nightmare from which she never awakens. He has been nurtured by that nightmare, waiting for the day to be born. That day has finally come. The time is nigh. Everyone will be released from pain and suffering. Our salvation is at hand. This is the day of reckoning, when all our sorrows will be washed away, when we return to the true paradise. My daughter will be the mother of God.
Quit screwing around. Return things to how they were before.
Kaufman!
Did I ask for this? Nobody uses me. You won't get away with this.
You're right, Hugo. We don't need you anymore. What do you think you can accomplish by coming here?
My, aren't we getting cocky? Bet you can't see this.
A glove? I thought I got rid of that.
All I had to do was plant it somewhere for you to find. You all, well, it kept you busy. Ha! You're easy. And there's more where this came from.
Stop it!
Huh? What the?
Harry, Sybil, and Kaufman try to escape, but a blood-soaked Letha Garland emerges from the shadows, dragging Kaufman down to the darkness with her. It's a gut-wrenching moment as Harry and Sybil make a desperate dash for safety, but the other world is crumbling around them faster than they can think. With June closing in, the incubator makes the ultimate sacrifice, using her last bit of strength to birth a baby and to hold back the destruction to give Harry and Sybil a fighting chance. As the flames consume her, Harry and Sybil escape hand-in-hand, clutching on to the baby for dear life. It's a bittersweet ending into a nightmare they'll never forget.
Daddy.
Now, I have to be truthful with everyone. This game has multiple endings. See, there's a couple of crucial moments in the game that can decide which ending you get. First off, there's a choice whether Harry decides to save Kaufman at the resort and grabs the vial from the motorcycle, or if he decides to kill or save Sybil. And there's a gag ending that'll be kind of funny. The one that I just walked you through is one of the possible canonical endings, but there's another one that can be considered canon too. Harry wraps up the Kaufman side quest, makes a tough call, and kills Sybil and faces off against the incubus. Harry emerges victorious. The incubator hands him a baby and points the way out. Lisa still takes Kaufman back down into the abyss. As the flames engulf the incubator, Harry makes a break for it, hitting the highway with a mix of relief and bewilderment at the chaos he just survived. As the credits roll, killing time sets the mood for this wild ride of an ending. Now for the first non-canonical ending, if Harry drops the ball on the Kaufman side quest and saves Sybil, Alessa and Cheryl still merge into the incubator. It's up to Harry to face off against this unholy fusion in battle for survival. After a grueling showdown, Harry emerges victorious, but victory comes with a heavy cost. As the reality of loss sinks in, he collapses in a wave of sorrow. But wait, there's a glimmer of hope. Sybil snaps him out of his despair, urging him to flee as the other world crumbles around him, and they make their escape. She sets the hopeful tone for this heart-wrenching ending.
Daddy.
Cheryl!
Thank you, Daddy. Goodbye.
Cheryl? Can't be. Can't leave like this. This can't be happening. Cheryl! Cheryl!
go.
Now for the next non-canonical ending, if Harry drops the ball on the coffin side quest and makes the gut-wrenching decision to kill Sybil, Alessa and Cheryl will still merge. Harry's forced into a showdown against the unholy fusion. Harry still emerges victorious, but victory tastes bitter in the face of a devastating loss. As he collapses in the sea of sorrow, the incubator surprises him with a heartfelt thanks and bids him farewell. But just when you think you've got it figured out, the rug is pulled right from under you. Harry's suddenly seen bleeding and unconscious in a car, suggesting that everything that went down in Silent Hill was just a twisted dream conjured up by the dying synapses of his brain. It's an ironic twist that'll leave you questioning everything you went through and know about the game. And to set the mood for this surreal ending, Esperdante fills the air with haunting melodies, adding to the eerie atmosphere.
Daddy.
Cheryl!
Thank you, Daddy. Goodbye.
Cheryl? Can't be. Can't leave like this. This can't be happening. Cheryl? Cheryl!
Now for the last non-canonical kind of spoof ending is the UFO ending. After Harry beats the game once, he unlocks the keys to the bizarre alternate reality by snagging a channeling stone and completing a few quirky tasks. Fast forward to the moment of truth, Harry whips out the channeling stone for the 5th and final time, and lo and behold, a fleet of UFOs descends from the heavens like some sort of sci-fi flick. As Harry tries to strike up conversation with these extraterrestrial visitors, they ain't having it. They blast him out of the sky and haul him off to their spaceship. Instead that, they're off into the cosmos, leaving Harry stranded in a state of utter confusion. But the fun's not over yet. As the credits roll, they're accompanied by a vintage 3D building effect straight out of the early to mid 1900s, adding the perfect touch of retro charm to this off-the-wall ending. What?
Sorry. Let me ask you, have you seen a little girl around here? Short, black hair?
This might seem a bit random, but have you ever watched Courage the Cowardly Dog? You know that show with the pink dog living in the middle of nowhere? For a kid's show, it serves as some of the creepiest, most unsettling images. Now you might be wondering, why am I bringing this up when we're supposed to be talking about Silent Hill? Bear with me for a second. A few years back, theories started popping up about Courage the Cowardly Dog, suggesting that Courage is just a normal dog, that the bizarre characters he encounters are actually just regular people, seen through his frightened perspective. Sound familiar? While I don't believe Silent Hill was directly inspired by Courage the Cowardly Dog, it's a compelling comparison that highlights the powerful theme of perception and the mind's influence on reality. Silent Hill is a game that demonstrated the many ways psychological horror can be interpreted. It showed us that the anticipation of something horrific is often more terrifying than the horror itself. Think about how the music builds in certain rooms, or the sound of glass cracking. It keeps us on edge, gripping our controllers tighter and tighter. The psychological horror in this game runs deeper than you might think. Beyond the vibrations in your controller and the eerie sound effects, the town itself is a manifestation of Alessa's mind, much like the concept in Courage the Cowardly Dog. When you examine the monsters, buildings, puzzles, and even the messages scrawled on the walls, it all reflects what's happening in Alessa's mind. We, as players, are in Harry's shoes, witnessing her story unfold in this twisted, nightmarish reality. We first delve into Alessa's mind when Harry encounters the air screamer in the diner after waking up. This monster is a direct manifestation from one of Alyssa Gillespie's favorite books, The Lost World, by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The creature springs to life in a passage in the book that describes, "Here," said he, pointing to the picture of an extraordinary flying monster, is an excellent reproduction of the Dysmorphodon or pterodactyl, a flying reptile of the Jurassic period. On the next page is a diagram of the mechanism of its wing. Kindly compare it with the specimen in your hand. This eerie encounter is just one of many ways Silent Hill brings Alyssa's inner world to life, blending her fears and obsession into the town's terrifying reality. The bare bones of this story are cleverly hinted in the first puzzle, where Harry has to find 3 keys: the Scarecrow, the Lion, and the Woodsman. This is a clear nod to the Wizard of Oz, with the keys named after Dorothy's companions. But what does this mean to Alessa? Is it just another one of her favorite books like The Lost World? Or does the narrative have a deeper parallels to the story? In this case, Harry is Alyssa's Dorothy, navigating the twisted road her mind has created. Just as Dorothy was unexpectedly whisked away to Oz, she had to embark on a journey to find her way home. Harry is drawn to Silent Hill out of nowhere and is compelled to find his daughter and return home. This first puzzle is more than just a step forward for Harry. It's a key at unlocking a story deeply rooted in Alyssa's psyche, showing how her influences shape the world around Harry. Moving on to the first location, Harry is sent to the scariest place for all children: school. Throughout the narrative, we learn that this is where Alessa is bullied by her classmates and feels deeply alienated. In this eerie setting, Harry encounters swarms of gray children. These grotesque figures are Alyssa's distorted and distorted perception of her classmates, manifesting her memories of torment and ridicule. We see evidence in this in the cruel messages like "Go home and drop dead" scribbled in her desk. The gray children's attacks are accompanied by the unsettling childish laughter, reinforcing their connection to Alyssa's bullies. Their behavior, such as clinging to Harry's legs, mimics how young children hug. But in this context, it symbolizes the relentless grip of Alyssa's bullying. Players must constantly shake them off, mirroring how Alessa couldn't escape the constant harassment she endured. In this school, Harry must navigate through Alessa's typical schedule, starting from the laboratory to the music room, ultimately leading to the one place that resonates with her the most, the boiler room. Here, the theme of the world being a manifestation of Alyssa's readings becomes apparent when Harry encounters Splithead, the game's first boss. But before the battle, Harry discovers a fairy tale book in the school that tells a tale eerily similar to Splithead, providing him the knowledge he needs to defeat the monster. Hearing this, the hunter armed with bow and arrow said, "I will kill the lizard," but upon meeting his opponent, he held back, taunting, "Who's afraid of a reptile?" As this furious lizard hissed, "I'll swallow you up in a single bite." The huge creature attacked, jaws open wide. This was what the man wanted. Calmly drawing his bow, he shot into the lizard's gaping mouth. Effortlessly, the arrow flew, piercing the defenseless maw, and the lizard fell down, dead. After battling this creature, it becomes evident that the world is Alyssa's creation, and Harry is merely navigating through it. This encounter reinforces how deeply Alyssa's mind influences the nightmare reality of Silent Hill. Leaving the school, Harry heads to the most holy place on the map, the church. Here we meet the Wicked Witch of the story, Dahlia Gillespie, Alyssa's mother. This encounter feels like a direct nod to Dorothy's story in The Wizard of Oz. When Dahlia says, "Stay back, nothing is to be gained from the floundering about at random. You must follow the path of the hermit concealed by flowers." It's not hard to think about the yellow brick road. This line, reminiscent of guiding Dorothy on her journey, emphasizes narrative parallels between Harry's quest to Silent Hill and Dorothy's adventure in Oz, further reinforcing the thematic connections within Alessa's twisted reality. Something that didn't hit me until later was when I found in the official game manual for Silent Hill. It described the hospital enemies, the nurses and doctors, as puppets. This made me think about how the parasite infecting them might represent Alyssa Gillespie's feeling that the entire hospital was controlled like puppets by the cult and the drug PTV supplied by Michael Kaufman. These enemies might also symbolize Alessa's deep-seated hatred for doctors, stemming from her forced confinement in the hospital. The parasite could represent Alessa's feelings towards the god within her, or even a manifestation of God himself attacking the townspeople, as Aglaophotis works effectively against them. This idea really solidified for me when I saw a flashback of Alessa in her bed with her mother, 2 doctors, and Michael Kaufman standing over her. I have to hand it to Team Silent. They really nailed it with Silent Hill. Their approach to horror was groundbreaking, emphasizing psychological terror over jump scares. It was a refreshing departure from typical horror games at the time. Like Resident Evil, where the threats are right in your face, Silent Hill opts for subtly evolving you in a fog and creating an atmosphere that feels like an open world, but in reality, it's a journey through Alessa's troubled mind. I could go on forever dissecting the meanings beyond the monsters, locations, and the entire world of Silent Hill. It's a masterful portrayal of how powerful the mind can be in shaping our reality and the horrors within it. You know what's really cool about this game? There are only 7 characters total, but doesn't feel lacking at all. Even with the small cast, there's so much depth to explore with each of their stories and narratives. It lets you dive into who these characters are and what makes them tick, rather than just scratching the surface. Sometimes less is more, you know? With a tighter ensemble, you get more room to peel back all those layers and uncover the juicy details. Makes for a richer, more intimate experience if you ask me. Okay, let's start by looking at the main man himself, Harry Mason. Get this, when Harry was just 25, he and his wife Jody stumbled across an abandoned baby on the side of the road one day. They took the little one and adopted her, naming her Cheryl. Sadly though, not long after the adoption, Jody passed away from some illness, leaving Harry a widower, raising Cheryl alone. Fast forward when Harry is 32, and he's still wrecked over losing his wife. That's when 70-year-old Cheryl convinces her dad they need to take a relaxing vacation to this resort town called Silent Hill to help him heal and move on. You can tell how much Cheryl means to Harry though. After the tragedy of losing Jody, he's not about to risk losing another loved one. His whole narrative in the game shows how far he's willing to protect his daughter. Speaking of Harry's name, here's an interesting tidbit from the creator. When development first began on the project, he was given the name Humbert Mason because of his role as a doting, dutiful father, which was referenced from the protagonist of the Stanley Kubrick film Lolita. However, since this is an uncommon name, it was changed by the English staff. The truth is that Harry was the nickname of the person who named the character. Overall, you can't help but feel for a guy like Harry. He's been through so much loss already, and right now he's fighting tooth and nail to keep his daughter safe in the midst of Silent Hill's nightmare. Dude is one resilient father for sure. Next up, we got to talk about Cheryl Mason and Alessa Gillespie, 2 characters who are intricately linked. We don't get a ton of insight into 70-year-old Cheryl's personality in the game itself, but her role is pivotal. She's the one who convinces her grieving father that they need to go away to Silent Hill for a relaxing trip to help him clear his head after losing his wife. Little did they know the nightmare that awaited them in that town. Because here's the crazy part, Cheryl is essentially the other half of Alessa Gillespie's soul. So while Cheryl may seem like a relatively minor player at the surface, her existence and connection to Alessa is absolutely vital to the overarching story. Speaking of their names, check out this quote from the creators. Originally I wanted to call her Dolores for the same reasons as Harry's character, but this was met with fierce opposition and was rejected. The name originates from Cheryl Lee, but there's no particular significance. Alright, now we got to talk about Alessa, because she's really the driving force behind this whole sister story. From what we know, Alessa was born with legit psychic abilities, astral projection, premonition, telekinesis, and pyrotechnics, you name it. Crazy powerful stuff that probably wouldn't have manifested if she had a normal life. But nope, Alessa's mom, Dahlia, was deep into the cult and had this messed up plan to basically have her daughter as a vessel to birth the cult's deity. So for years, Dahlia intentionally kept Alessa in constant agonizing pain down in the basement of Alchemia Hospital, pumping her full of hallucinogenic drugs that satisfy her torment. All part of this ritual to lure the missing piece of Alessa's soul, aka Cheryl, back to town to reunite them. Only Alessa wasn't having it. In the midst of the never-ending agony, she reached out to Cheryl herself, calling her back to Silent Hill with the intention of reuniting their souls, but also killing herself in the process to prevent her mom's messed up cult plan from succeeding. That's why she actually projects herself in front of Harry and Cheryl's Jeep, causing the crack to separate Cheryl and lets Alessa finally reunite with her other half. You can see some potential inspirations in Alessa's backstory too, like Carrie from the Stephen King novel, another teenage girl with powers and a fanatically religious mom, or the character Florence Tanner from the film The Legend of Hill House, whose long ponytail hairstyle is similar to Alessa's. At the end of the day, Alessa is the one pulling the strings, Even from her position of unimaginable torment and suffering, her desperate attempt to circumvent her own destiny is what kicks the whole game's narrative into high gear. She's both protagonist and antagonist, savior and potential destroyer, all rolled up into one incredibly complex, haunting character. Let's delve into the real villain of Silent Hill, Dahlia Gillespie, Alessa's mother. This woman is straight up twisted. Dahlia was the owner of the Green Lion Antique Store in Silent Hill, but she had this whole secret cult church connected to it. Rumor has it she was into some shady side business like magic spells and fortune telling as well. From a young age, Dahlia knew her daughter Alessa had crazy psych abilities, telekinesis, summoning poltergeists, you name it. The other kids had even branded Alessa as a witch because of it, but instead of, being a normal protected mother, Dahlia got into her head that Alessa's powers were linked to the cult god they worshipped. So this cycle decides the best move was to try to literally birth the cult god using her own daughter as an incubator. She did all these messed up occult rituals, one of which caused a house fire that left poor Alessa burned and disfigured beyond recognition. But Dahlia wasn't done. Through some black magic, she kept Alessa's burned husk alive and locked away in the basement of a hospital run by another cult crony, Dr. Kaufman. From there, Dahlia just tormented Alessa endlessly, pumping her full of drugs and keeping her in constant agony, all to try to lure the missing piece of Alessa's soul back to town to complete her war ritual. She's the one who tricks Harry, plays all the mind games with him about finding Cheryl and stopping the darkness, when in reality she's the one responsible for unleashing it all in her deranged quest. You can maybe see some inspiration from Stephen King's Salem Lot and Dahlia Gillespie's Surname. But either way, she's one cold, calculating, utterly deprived woman who's willing to sacrifice her own daughter's life and humanity on the altar of her cult's beliefs. If that's not what the definition of an evil villain is, then I don't know what is. Let's cover the shady Dr. Kaufman. This dude is bad news. Kaufman is the director of Arkham Hospital in Silent Hill, but he's way more than just a regular doctor. Nope. Kaufman is tight with Dahlia Gillespie and her messed up cult, The Order. He and Dahlia had this whole alliance going where Kaufman would supply the cult with his hallucinating drug called PTV that they cooked up from some local plant called White Claudia. Kaufman was making a pretty penny selling this stuff off of tourists and even his own nurse, Lisa Garland, who he basically forced to be Alessa's caretaker against her will by threatening her with withdrawal. Speaking of Alessa, Kaufman is the one who arranged her medical care at the hospital after Dahlia's cult ritual left the poor girl burned beyond recognition at age 7. Only instead of actually treating her, he just kept Alessa's crispy husk locked away in the basement on Dahlia's orders while she tormented her daughter endlessly. Now, at first, Kaufman seemed to be going along with Dahlia's plan to birth the cult's deity from Alessa, but at some point he must have wised up about how crazy all of this was, because he started stashing away vials of this agolaphotic stuff that could terminate Alessa's pregnancy. He even rigged up an escape route with a motorcycle at one end of the local motels in case he needed to book it, which is exactly what he tries to do when Dahlia smashes his agolaphotic stash. By the time Harry meets him, Kaufman is a raving mess with a gun, ranting about Dahlia's betrayal as he desperately tries to gather his documents and gold to flee the country. According to the creators, Kaufman's name actually is a nod to the B-movie producers Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hurst from Troma Studios. But either way, he's one sketchy, morally bankrupt character who enabled all kinds of messed up cult activities before turning a tail when it all went sideways. Let's go with the tragic story of Lisa Garland. Poor Lisa, she really got dealt with a raw hand in the Silent Hill madness. She was just a young woman from a town with dreams of making it big as an actress, but her family pressured her into becoming a nurse instead, following her mom and grandma's footsteps. So Lisa ends up working as a trainee at Alchemy Hospital under the sketchy Dr. Kaufman, who's got all these shady cult ties. At some point, Kaufman gets Lisa hooked on this illegal narcotic drug he's peddling as a part of his operation with the cult The Order. Using her addiction against her, Kaufman then blackmails Lisa into becoming Alessa's caretaker down in the hospital basement, even though the poor girl is just a burned, torn husk at this point thanks to the cult's messed up rituals. Lisa has no choice but to comply if she wants to keep getting her fix. For 7 long years, Lisa is trapped in this nightmare, strung out on drugs, forced to tend to Alessa's horribly injured body. It's enough to send anyone over the edge mentally and physically. Lisa starts having terrifying hallucinations and becomes fully unstable. By the time Harry arrives, Lisa is just gone, driven completely insane by years of trauma and the addiction at the hands of Kaufman and the cult. Her spirit is left trapped in the other world after her death. You can see at some potential inspirations of Lisa's name was nods to actors of the film Sanguela, as well as Judy Garland's Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. And her character design was inspired by a nurse from The Exorcist 3 that the devs were fans of. But beyond any pop culture references, Lisa's story is just a singularly heartbreaking tragedy. An innocent woman who got chewed up and spit out by the town's dark forces through no fault of her own. A reminder that even among the supernatural horror, human evil can be just as destructive. Now let's talk about Sybil Bennett, the tough as nail cops who gets unwillingly dragged into the Silent Hill nightmare alongside Harry. On the surface, Sybil is just like your classic nonsense police officer. She's calm, collected, and all business, even when the situation around her starts going on the deep end. Her backstory reveals she had to grow up dealing with trauma at a young age, witnessing her own parents' brutal murder while hiding in a closet as a little girl. So it's no wonder Sybil developed this reserved, almost detached demeanor as a coping mechanism. Becoming a cop was likely her way of trying to prevent other kids from having to go through what she did. She got this fierce sense of duty and loyalty that means she'll put her life on the line without hesitation to protect the innocent, like when she vows to save Cheryl. At the same time though, Sybil's also pretty skeptical of anything that can be rationally explained. All the cult craziness and the paranormal happens in Silent Hill. In her mind, it's just a bunch of loons and drugs pulling some sort of stunt. Her grounded by the book mentality leaves little room for supernatural occurrences. You can see her disbelief slowly getting chipped away, though, as the nightmare escalates. One minute she's calmly reassuring Harry that they'll get back up. The next, she's watching in horror as she gets attacked by faceless monstrosities. Sybil's resolute tough girl persona crackling in the face of such a nightmarish reality is low-key one of the most unsettling aspects of the game. By the end, whether she lives or dies depends on the player's choices. But either way, Sybil represents a silver skeptical of normalcy in the madness, the part of you as a player that still wants to cling to rational explanations. Even as the game keeps pulling the rug out from under you, her journey is like a microcosm of the psychological gauntlet Silent Hill puts you through as you descend further into fear and madness. Alright, so let's talk a bit about how Silent Hill actually plays. The main character you control is Harry Mason, who gets dropped right into the things searching for his missing daughter Cheryl in this messed up ghost town. Now, even though the story is pretty linear, the way you navigate the different locations around Silent Hill gives it this cool open world vibe. Like, you got all these distinct areas you can fully explore as you try to piece together what the hell is going on. But here's where things get really interesting. Your choices and actions throughout the game actually determine which of the 5 wildly different endings you get. There's a good plus ending and a good minus ending. Then there's a bad plus ending and a bad minus ending for, well, you probably guessed the wrong calls. And there's this crazy UFO ending, which is just about bonkers as it sounds. Pretty ambitious for a game to have many distinct narrative branches based on how you play. Adds a ton of replayability too if you're a completionist trying to see every possible outcome. Now, when it comes to actually controlling Harry, Silent Hill uses the classic tank control scheme since it's a third-person game, which honestly works really well for the vibe that they were going for. The camera angles always trying to dramatically frame the best cinematic view as you're navigating the town's creepy corridors and alleyways. Those tank controls aren't perfect though. Sometimes if an enemy gets you from an awkward side angle, it could be a pain to quickly line up your shots before they whack you. In those situations, your best bet is to usually just put some distance between you and the baddies so you pick them all one by one at a safer range. The game also gives you a few helpful mechanics to deal with that stuff at least. Like if you get cornered, there's a quick hop back move that rapidly creates some breathing room, and in general, you can slowly reverse away from danger while facing forward, which comes in clutch. So the tank controls have their quirks for sure, especially in tight quarters, but overall, the deliberate kind of clunky movement adds to the thick cinematic atmosphere they crafted. Like you're this regular dude just stumbling his way through the nightmare, rather than some finely tuned action hero. Okay, but quirks aside, one thing Silent Hill definitely doesn't lack in is brain-bending puzzles to slow your roll. This game puts you in critical thinking skills to ultimately test your way to make any real progress. We're talking some serious devious stuff too, from having to input tile sequences in the right order to straight up deciphering musical notes in theory at one point. No matter how you slice it, Silent Hill demands you flex those cerebral muscles hard. which is awesome in a way because it forces you to really engage with the whole game world and pay attention to every little detail and clue. But it's also kind of a double-edged sword, especially when it launched back in 1999 before the internet made puzzle solutions so accessible. If you get stumped on one of these mind-bending puzzles with no way to look up the answer, the only choices were to either bash your head against a mental brick wall until you broke through, or throw in a towel. And for a lot of folks, it was probably just too frustrating to stick it out. On the flip side though, if you did manage to power through and solve those taxing riddles on your own, talk about it in a mad sense of accomplishment. Of course, the puzzles were always the exact same too, no matter the difficulty you play on, so at least you know the solutions are locked in permanently once you decipher them. Now when it comes to dialing in that challenge, Silent Hill gives you a few options right off the bat: easy, normal, or hard mode. And let me tell you, if you're gluten for punishment and truly want a harrowing experience, hard mode will definitely deliver on that. We're talking enemies just keep respawning in areas you've already cleared, piling on the pressure. On other difficulties, once you take the baddies out in a section, they're gone for good. But hard mode, nah. It just keeps throwing fresh nightmares at you relentlessly. What I really like about this though is how the game doesn't just let you stick with the same difficulty indefinitely. See, when you boot it up after beating it once, it automatically starts you on the next sphere save file, bumped up to the next higher challenge level. So if you mastered it on easy your first playthrough, next time you're getting tossed straight into the normal deep end. Same thing if you cleared normal, your next run up is amped up to that brutal horror setting, no babying you. And a sweet system for adding tons of taste and replayability while still letting you work your way up to those higher difficulties at your own pace. Gotta respect the game doesn't just hand out those bigger challenges, but really makes you earn them each step of the way. But you know what really keeps you coming back for multiple playthroughs? The tantalizing prospect of unlocking some crazy new toys based on which ending you nab. The other options menu allows you to change the overall gameplay once you complete the game. See, just beating the game period, whether it's good ending or bad ending, gets you access to certain heavy duty gear right off the bat. We're talking game changers like the gas tank, an item that lets you either stack the rock drill or a chainsaw in future runs. Two ridiculously overpowered weapons that aren't accessible the first playthrough. Just that alone is enough motivation to take another crack at it. But then it gets even better. If you manage to see both good and bad ending, a whole new item spawns in the house, the katana sword. This baby alone is the absolute best at dishing out obscene damage with its different attack types. The only downside is the slow speed and the way it propels Harry forward with each swing. And then there's the holy grail, the hyper blaster gun you can only get by witnessing the goofy UFO ending. This puppy is no joke. Once unlocked, you can even outfit it with special colored beams like red, yellow, and green based on your overall ranking. Now the ranking aspect of Silent Hill is where things get a little bit more convoluted, not gonna lie. But stick with me here, I'll do my best to try explaining it simply. Basically, your overall rank is displayed using these big little star icons. Each big star represents 1 point, while each little star is a 10th point. So if you had, say, 7 stars and 5 little ones, your total rank would be 7 out of 5 out of 10 or 75 out of 10. Make sense so far? The goal, of course, is to max out that sucker to get a perfect 10 out of 10 or 100 out of 100. But how you actually earn the points is where it gets a bit hairy. See, there's no set requirement for just defeating X number of enemies or getting Y headshots or whatever. Nope. It all boils down to this complicated formula that judges your fighting skills and shooting skills together as your overall combat score. The ideal scenario is getting even 100 fighting kills and 100 shooting kills, which should net your max points for that category, if my math is right. Anything lopsided where you rely too heavily on one side or the other, and those kills get severely diminished returns. Then you got this whole other silly formula which judges your shooting style by looking at your ratio of short, mid, and long range shots, with long range being the most valuable and miss no aim shots actually counting against you in a big way. Basically, you want to keep those no aim wasted shots under around 23 to 13% or so if you can help it. In typical run through, you might go over accidentally, but if you're mindful enough and take your time to line up shots, staying in that 5 to 10% range is very doable. Oh, while the difficulty doesn't directly impact ranking, playing on easy mode does dock you 5 whole points automatically. Not that it really matters since you need to do multiple playthroughs on higher difficulties anyway to realistically max out the 10-star rank. The one unforgiving thing is the game timer never stops, even if you pause, so you gotta make sure you have 0 distractions when going for that 100% rank. One little slip up with the timer running and kiss that flawless run goodbye. The last thing I need to talk about is the sound category. The sound design and music in Silent Hill played a crucial role in amplifying the game's horror and unsettling atmosphere. Here's how they contributed the terrifying experience. The ambient sounds and effects were masterfully crafted to keep players on edge at all times. Even mundane noises like footsteps or creaking floorboards took an ominous tone when juxtaposed with the thick fog and decaying environments. Suddenly, sound like a locker slamming would make you jump out of your skin, preparing you for a scare that may or may not come. But perhaps most iconic was the use of the portable radio to detect enemies. That harsh burst of static will cut through the eerie silence, signaling danger was near, but leaving you guessing from which direction they would strike. The way the radio would abruptly cut out during certain areas like the sewers was a brilliant way to deprive you of that safety clutch and ratchet up the dread. Then you had the haunting musical score composed by Akira Yamaoka. Rather than going for traditional horror stringers, Yamaoka opted for an unsettling industrial soundscape inspired by the work of Angelo Badalamenti on Twin Peaks. The droning atonal melodies and harsh grating textures established the overriding sense of decay and wrongness. Even the team initially thought these abrasive, unmusical sounds were a bug in the game's audio, but Yamaoka stuck to his unconventional vision, wanting to differentiate Silent Hill sonics from other games through a cold, rusty, and deeply uncomfortable ambiance. The music's distorted tones would swell in perfect sync, with the visuals amplifying the fear and disorientation as you pass between the decaying real world and nightmarish otherworld versions of locations. Yamaoka's compositions actively contributed to your sense of psychological unraveling. While the visuals and creature designs were certainly disturbing, it was a masterful use of sound that really got under your skin and implanted that gnawing sense of dread. The audio made every empty room and dark corner feel consumed by an unintangible, omnipresent threat. Silent Hill's genius was in how well it played on the things you couldn't see or comprehend through its haunting soundscape. Okay, so when the original Silent Hill dropped back in 1999, it was a pretty big hit with critics and audiences alike. Overall, on Metacritic, the game scored generally favorable reviews across the board. More importantly though, this psychological horror trip resonated hard with gamers. Silent Hill moved over 2 million copies worldwide, which was enough to earn it a spot in the prestigious greatest hits lineup in PlayStation. Heck, it even snagged a gold award from the German game rating board, selling over 100,000 units in that region alone. Now, a lot of people initially wrote Silent Hill off as just another Resident Evil clone trying to capitalize on the survival horror craze. And sure, on a surface level, there was some similarities. Third-person perspective, inventory management, the whole trapped in a nightmare premise. But what set Silent Hill apart was its singular focus on cultivating a thick, oppressive atmosphere of dread over cheap jump scares or visceral action set pieces. Everything from the haunting soundtrack to the grainy visuals and ever-present fog worked on tandem to unsettle you on a deeper psychological level. Sure, the voice acting was pretty cheesy and the tank controls were a pain at times, but most critics agreed those technical shortcomings only added to the overall sense of gritty realism and vulnerability. This wasn't some slick Hollywood horror flick. It was a disturbing descent into darker corners of the human psyche. Looking back, Silent Hill really pushed narrative horror games into more artistic psychological territory compared to the B-movie camp of earlier survival horror titles. It proved you could tell mature, proactive stories in games without relying on cheap thrills. No wonder it started getting showered with accolades and greatest game nods almost immediately after launch. Man, Silent Hill really messed me up in the best way possible when I first played it back in the day. I'll never forget that feeling of dread that just creeped over me from the opening cinematic alone. One minute you're taking this seamlessly innocent road trip with Harry and his daughter Cheryl. The next you watch this bizarre nightmarish sequence unfold with no context. Just an instant sense of, oh crap, what have I gotten myself into here? And that uneasy atmosphere only amplified as the game kicked in. The developers just nailed every single element to maximize the psychological horror. The ever-present fog obscuring your vision, the gritty visuals making everything feel grimy and decayed, the haunting ambient sounds constantly putting you on edge. Every new area you explore felt like you're wandering deeper into an actual nightmare. One second you're in this quaint little town, the next you're surrounded by grotesquely mutilated bodies and faceless monstrosities coming at you with knives. The hard cuts between normal and otherworld versions of Silent Hill were just so jarring and unsettling. What really stuck with me was how helpless and vulnerable Harry felt as a player character. He moved with this clunky realism, couldn't run for long stretches, and was just generally ill-equipped to handle the horrors around him. You were this everyman thrust into the unimaginable circumstances, which just compounded the fear factor. Solving obscure puzzles and scourging for sparse resources became a desperate act of survival. And the fact that you could miss things or make choices that locked you into different endings, that means you could never fully relax, always wondering if you were on the right path or missing some crucial piece in the puzzle. Sure, the voice acting was cheesy and some puzzles were a bit tedious, but those flaws almost added to the B-movie charm in a weird way. Like this was someone's feverish low-budget nightmare given unholy life through cutting-edge tech at the time. More than anything though, I'll never forget the sheer dread of entering those sewers with my radio, only for it to suddenly cut out, leaving me alone in silence, as God knows when I lurked in the darkness. Moments like this just burned Silent Hill's psychological mastery into my psyche forever. For its time, it was a masterclass in atmospheric horror that still holds up today. Not because the cheap scares or the over-the-top gore, but because of the thick, inescapable sense of fear and dread it cultivated so masterfully. A true nightmare that crawled under your skin and messed with your mind in all the best ways.
If I was you, I would give it a try. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this. Hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all our latest uploads. If you have any retrospective requests or suggestions, feel free to drop them in the comment section down below. This is the Retro Phantom, signing out.